Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakim, who's out there on four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Bracha. So, as you can tell, though, this video here was taken down, for so-called medical misinformation. So, you will find this on the BitChute channel, which links are provided down below. As we get into this shit show of inauguration, they're already weighing in on it. The rest of the world is weighing in on this. Which nation will the U.S. Democrats try to destroy in the next 4 years? Who you going to kill next? Old timers, who you going to kill next? Like the old song by Roger Waters. John Kennedy's Camelot was a magical time for United Snakes leftists. Too bad its promise was not fully realized. His attempted armed overthrow of the Cuban Revolution failed to return Washington's fascist allies to power. It's so interesting how Lyndon Baines Johnson was brought down by mass protests, which were not quelled until Donald Trump. The difference is that the anti-LBJ protests were completely anti-imperialist and internationalist in nature, against this continuation of Kennedy's war on the Vietnamese people, whereas the Never Trump movement is totally self-absorbed in Americanism and virtually concerned with immediate reasserting American dominance and prestige. Because again, it's how many people you can kill. Because that's all this place ever does is oppress the earth. The hammer of the whole earth is now going to be cut asunder. And like everything else, though, we're just weighing in on it. Hastens the coming of the day of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And there's another video here, a repost. Because you trust in oppression, here's what you're going to get with Sleepy Joe. Yeah, you trust in this place, right?
It's well, it's easier to be a parent this morning. It's easier to be a dad. It's easier.
Yeah, you love Satan,
to tell your kids character matters. It matters. Telling the truth matters. Being a good person matters.
Man, listen to this devil suck his cock, man.
And it's easier for a whole lot of people. If you're Muslim in this country, you don't have to worry if the president doesn't want you here.
Liar!
You don't have to worry.
See, our people love Esau. They love oppression.
Send dreamers back for no reason.
Man, our people are gone. You're going to find out who's the real oppressor here.
You can hear the celebration from blocks away as hundreds of people tapped and twirled on Black Lives Matter Plaza Sunday to continue the celebration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's projected presidential win. Danielle Parker says she finally had something to celebrate.
And I'm just so excited for our country to come together, for my children, for my children's
Man, Eve is just eating this shit up, man.
It was important to come down today because there's energy going on right now. Biden just won, you feel me? There's a lot of love going around.
But despite the Bloc Party-esque celebration, there were some who weren't here to celebrate, standing in front of the White House fence with the sign that says this election is a fraud. But that didn't seem to put a damper on other people's spirits.
That's great for me, great for her, great for all women of this wonderful country.
And the dance party kept going anyway.
We have never had this much division And so for us to just come
Almost
together,
sounds like
people,
Prince's
it's not
song,
about
1999.
Republicans, it's not about Democrats,
You know, the
it's
sky
about
is all
American
purple. There are people
And
running
this is
everywhere,
trying to be
trying to run from the
again.
destruction,
Tonight, there's no
but they want to party like it's 1999.
In DC, Colby Satterfield.
World War III is right around the corner, and these people are celebrating. What a retard. I will turn your celebrations into the times of mourning and your singing into weeping. Yeah, man. Now this is what you're celebrating.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year. Got a lot of work to do. And if I'm elected your president, we're going to do it. We're going to act. We're going to need your help in doing it as well. We're going to act to get COVID under control. On day one of my presidency, I'll put in action a plan I've been talking about for months, already laid out. A national mandate, mask wearing, social distancing, testing, tracing, all things, as President Obama just said, that should have and could have been put in place months and months ago. A plan for a full and fair and free, I might add, distribution of therapeutics and vaccines when we get one. First, I'll go to every governor, urge them to mandate mask wearing in their states. And if they refuse, I'll go to the mayors and county executives and get local masking requirements in place nationwide. As president, I'll mandate mask wearing in all federal buildings and all interstate transportation. Because masks save lives, period.
Absolutely.
This is what happened in Arizona. Republican governor initially tried to bar local governments from implementing mandates on their communities. What happened? In June, Arizona got hit with a surge of cases. Hospitals were flooded. The state health system was overwhelmed. So cities and counties appealed the governor's ruling. They imposed their own local mandates, covering most of the state. The result? Cases fell by 75%. Wearing a mask is not a political statement. It's a scientific imperative.
It's a sign to show you're a slave.
I consider the Trump administration a danger to the world that will disappear in 2020.
What if I told you that Bill Gates, Greta Thunberg, Al Gore, George Soros, Prince Charles, and Cardinal Turkson were meeting in the mountains to plot a global new order to be established on the back of the COVID pandemic? An outrageous movie plot? Or is it absolutely true? Here's where the leaders of the world are admitting exactly what I'm saying, that this is a Trojan horse. Now in Davos, they call it the Great Reset, and it's scheduled now to kick off in January 2021.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path.
What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call.
It's the Davos Summit and the Great Reset. They need President Joe the Catholic Biden to hand us, the United States, over to them if he wins this election. This is why they're trying so hard to take Donald Trump down. Biden is not a serious candidate. We can all agree on that, right? He's not serious. The poor fellow. He's in his dotage now. So what are they doing? They don't want a serious candidate. I'm not talking about on the right. I'm talking about on the left. They don't want someone who's going to be serious. Everyone with a pulse knows Joe Biden can't do this job. What's he doing there then? In my opinion, he's the personified monument to the U.S. presidency that the mob will tear down in January. They need to reset everything, including the politics of the United States, the governance of the United States. Besides that, old Joe the Catholic Biden has always been a New World Order guy.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
And that's what you got coming. But you're going to party like it's 1999. Our people, the 2/3, man, totally lost. But there is those of us that are the elect that will not fall for this shit. And that's who the Most High is going to protect. Then you will know who the prophets really were. So, looking further into this, House sends Trump impeachment article to Senate, triggering trial. So, indeed, they are still going through with impeaching Donald Trump, even though Biden's been in office for a week. The U.S. House of Representatives presented a single article of impeachment to the Senate Monday, accusing Donald Trump of inciting the storming of the Capitol, setting in motion the first ever impeachment trial of a former president. You see, they have to remove the name Donald Trump, because again, we're being moved over to one category, those that are anti-New World Order and those that are for the New World Order. So if you're against the New World Order, you're in the same category as Trump. Trump is now the example, just like Alex Jones was a couple years ago, as they're continuing to take down videos right and left and, censoring any truther out there. In a solemn procession, the 9 House impeachment managers silently walked the article through the same orbital halls of Congress overrun by Trump supporters on January 6th, which was a false flag, and delivered it to the Senate. So, indeed, it's happening. And then, of course, when the people have nothing, they lose it. And this is what's going on with the lockdowns and all that. The actual protest that's going on. And this is just happening worldwide. So this is India, because I recognize the flag. But just, you take a look, you can find footage like this everywhere around the world, man. They're sick of the fucking New World Order. They are tired of the fucking lockdowns, which is all bullshit. There is no coronavirus threat. It's been a lie all along. And more people are dying from the injections, such as Hank Aaron and others who have died. And then the not so famous that have died after taking the injection. And they're trying to cover that up, so people are getting it. So how much longer will we be there? Well, a famine of the word is coming. As you know, though, I've been having to send my camp videos over to BitChute, for 2 weeks they've taken down my video after it went up. So, you know, you're seeing uproars of the people. And then, of course, you've got, this going on, you know, as you see, though, that pretty much as a result of the lockdowns, man, there's no mirth
It's been
left.
called the California Dream.
Shut up!
Great Migration.
Fuck you! God damn it! Yeah, see, it must be on autoplay. Salakia for that. Goddamn devil. Just trying to get it to work.
It's reached its highest level in nearly 5 years in the 3 months to November. That's according to the Office for National Statistics. The latest data by the office shows that the unemployment rate rose to 5% in the mentioned period. It means more than 1.7 million Britons lost their jobs. The hospitality industry was the worst hit, followed by manufacturing. The rise in joblessness has been blamed on a surge in COVID cases that forced the UK into a new lockdown. Finance Minister Rishi Sunak says the crisis has gone on far longer than anyone hoped for. Economists have warned of more job losses in the coming months, urging the government to extend support for jobs.
So there you go, man. You got the people
James Studios
dependent
journalist and commentator
on a
joins us.
check.
Shouldn't be too surprised by this piece of news, given the fact that, well, the list is rather long. You have COVID-19, you have the news of the double-dip recession that the UK and the EU is going to be experiencing, and of course we're looking at the economic downturn that the UK has experienced. Maybe too early to say this, but because of Brexit. So what is your reaction to what this news is about the joblessness in the UK?
I think there's a number of issues here. I mean, one is that the government, to be fair, is doing quite a lot to support business and to try and keep people in employment, with its furlough scheme, for instance, with its grants and loans to businesses. And another thing is that there's a lot of pressure, there has been a lot of pressure from the left, from the Labour Party and other groups on the left, to actually have a much more severe lockdown, and basically to, for instance, I mean, some people say that essentially parents should be paid to stay at home and look after and school their kids at home and not go to work.
They're mandating the vaccine, then why the lockdown? You see, they're not going to let people out, even if you take the vaccine. This should be a lesson to you.
Also, the government has to balance, again, pressure from the left and also from all over, and advice from its own scientific advisors that they needed to impose these lockdown measures, which have impacted especially the hospitality industry, also retail, and they've had to balance that with say the pressures to allow businesses to do business. One thing.
And that's just it, though, you see. As much as they try to speculate, what's really going on, though, is that it's shut down everything. And hey, you know, this clown hasn't even been in office for a week and already shit's popping off right and left, you know?
A week in office, and it's already a disaster. Businesses closing, jobs dying and stocks crashing, costs soaring, and gas is gone. Another 900,000 jobless claims have been filed last week. Joe Biden had the worst start to any administration in history. He announced the destruction of tens of thousands of high-paying energy jobs and higher fuel prices. All this while they are raising taxes on people who are struggling to pay their bills due to lockdowns. Today the new one is a 40% tax on capital gains inherited in estates. Can't raise income tax because incomes are under attack, so let's find some other ways to tax more people. Jobs and money already outflowing to China in less than a week in office. He destroyed tens of thousands of jobs in his first couple of days, and he's just getting warmed up. Trying to ban the world's only reliable energy source. Billions would starve in a few months. Everyone would turn on each other, fighting for every last scrap. Thanks to the Make America Venezuela policy. It looks like everyone already forgot what a disaster the Federal Reserve was under Yellen. This is the Great Reset, like the New Deal. It is happening right before our eyes. Make sure you are prepared. The lockdowns were just preparing you for the Great Reset. The Great Reset is in motion. Buckle up. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Which is what we have here at Great Millstone, is the 100% truth. Now I'm going to get back to this, but I want to read a few more articles before I do. You know. And here's what's going on with the wars. Russian naval fleet stalks U.S. warship in the Black Sea, so there's been skirmishes over there as well. You know. But again, you don't hear so much about it because the coronavirus hoax. Russia's Black Sea Fleet has begun to track movements of the U.S. Navy's Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, USS Donald Cook, that entered the Black Sea, Russian National Defense Control Center said on Saturday. The Black Sea's fleet radars have begun tracking the movements of the U.S. Navy's guided missile destroyer, USS Donald Cook, that entered the Black Sea on January 23rd, 21, the center said. So, what are they moving there for? Of course, they want regime change in Syria. But wait, there's more. Large number of Russian forces deployed to central Syria for operation against ISIS, which is the Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. So ISIS has been built up, and the United States is going there to support them. Over the past few days, several Russian military convoys have suddenly moved toward the Syrian desert as they join fight on the ground against the Islamic State terrorist organization. According to Sputnik, the Russian military convoys consisted of armored vehicles, troop carriers, and trucks carrying logistical equipment to the forces in the Syrian desert. Special sources revealed to Sputnik that the Russian forces, in cooperation with the units of the Syrian Arab Army and the Russian military force, have moved reinforcements toward the Bayad al-Sham region, which is located in the countryside of Hama, Raqqa, and Homs. So, you see how Magog is being a guard unto them, that they're the main player here. And then you have Gomer and all his bands. Turkey launches major operations near Syrian borders, so you got these terrorists as well. Because it's always been a proxy war against Syria. The Turkish Ministry of Interior announced on Tuesday the launch of 2 new operations against the Kurdish Workers' Party as part of the ARN security. They always say that they're fighting the PKK, but they're really there to arm terrorists. The ministry said in a statement that it has continued its armed operations against the terrorist organization with the aim of eradicating its roots and neutralizing the last terrorist in it as of January 11. So, again, the Turkish armed forces launched 2 other operations along the Syrian border, particularly in the Mardin area. And then there's more. They finally got photos of this. Israeli state F-35 spotted above Lebanon for the first time. And so you got photos, you know, because Israeli state shouldn't be flying over their airspace, but you see, Amalek, the least of the flock, can pretty much do whatever they want without condemnation. An Israeli F-35 jet was allegedly spotted over Lebanese airspace this week, and it was sighted for the first time in the small Lebanon nation since it's first acquired by Tel Aviv. In the photos, which were reportedly taken by a photographer from Hezbollah and later shared on social media, the Israeli F-35 can be seen at a medium altitude over Lebanon. It's not clear where the F-35 was intending to fly or how long it was in Lebanese airspace. Well, you can best believe it's part of their plans to bomb Syria. Israeli state was one of the first countries in the world to acquire the F-35 from the United States, Lockheed Martin, after its successful test by the arm manufacturer. So again, you know, got this going on. Lebanon has accused Israeli state of repeatedly violating its airspace despite several attempts to Beirut to halt the Israeli state's overflights. The Israeli state has repeatedly used Lebanese airspace to launch terror airstrikes against neighboring Syria, which has also been a subject of several angry letters from Damascus to the United Nations about the attacks. But you see, the war would just continue. And then, of course, you know, getting into this Middle Eastern diplomacy. It's all about diplomacy, democracy, right? You know, because that's what Babylon the Great is selling.
In the Middle East, the proxy war between Israel and Iran is unfolding at full speed. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, target various positions in Syria, allegedly damaging Iran's interests. In return, Tehran's allies and proxies target Israel's allies throughout various positions in the Middle East. On January 22nd, IDF warplanes struck targets in the vicinity of the city of Hama in central Syria. The attack was launched from Lebanese airspace. At least 7 missiles hit various targets. Most of the missiles, however, were intercepted by Syrian defenses. Reportedly, a civilian family was killed as a projectile struck the heavily populated district of Kazo in Hama city. It is unclear what specifically was targeted by the IDF, but it usually disregards reports of civilian casualties. The missiles that were used in the attack turned out to be the U.S.-made GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, or SDB, a type of smart bomb. Following the strikes in Syria, 5 U.S. supply convoys were attacked in different parts of Iraq. The first attack took place in the southern city of Nasiriyah. A third of the supplies were destroyed and a vehicle was damaged. 2 of the attacks happened in the central province of Babylon. The remaining 2 attacks were carried out in El Diwaniyah and near Abu Ghraib, west of the capital, Baghdad. There are reports of injuries, no deaths, and some damage to equipment and supplies. Injuries were suffered by members of the U.S.-led coalition in Iraq and not just Iraqi contractors doing their job for a wage. The Islamic resistance in Iraq, Ashab al-Kaf, claimed responsibility for all 5 attacks and vowed to continue carrying them out. Saudi Arabia, a behind-the-scenes ally of Israel and a very open ally of the U.S., was also subject to an attack. On January 23rd, Saudi defenses intercepted a missile or drone attack over Riyadh. Social media users posted videos of what appeared to be an explosion in the air over the city. The Houthis haven't claimed responsibility for the attack or commented on it. However, according to reports, Iran recently deployed advanced Shahed 136 suicide drones to the Ansar Allah movement in order to assist them in their fight against the Saudi-backed coalition. On the previous day, Saudi Arabia reported that it had foiled an attempted attack by a booby-trap boat and another drone attack, but no evidence was provided apart from the claim. The situation in the Middle East is in a sort of vicious cycle. Israel targets reported Iranian positions throughout Syria. Tehran then responds by targeting Israel's allies through its proxies. Neither of the sides directly targets each other, at least not yet. Tel Aviv has even vowed to carry out a strike on Iran's nuclear program if the Biden administration rejoins the Iran nuclear deal. In turn, Iran seems to be rock solid about retaliation.
And that's just it. You see how the least of the flux is going to draw everybody into this war.
On the eve of incoming US President Joe Biden's inauguration, as if in celebration of his success, quite a few things coincided in the Middle East, most of them to America's detriment. These include the anniversary of the killing of Iranian Brigadier General Qasem Soleimani, the new killing of top nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, and a ramping up of Israeli airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria. As a result, the American forces in the Middle East appear to be fresh out of luck in the first weeks of 2021. A series of misadventures has befallen US soldiers in Syria and Iraq. On January the 19th, a US AH-64 Apache attack helicopter allegedly crashed in the northeastern Syrian province of Hazaka. It reportedly crashed inside the US base at the Al Jabsa oil field near the city of Al-Shadadi. There is no information on any casualties as yet, but there were likewise initially none when Iranian ballistic missiles hit the US Al-Assad base in Iraq back in January 2020. On January the 9th, disaster had struck in the central and southern regions of Iraq as 3 US convoys were reportedly hit by IEDs. These attacks were an unsurprising adverse effect of the standoff between the US-led coalition and the Iranian-aligned Axis of Resistance in the Middle East. Days later, a series of explosions hit positions of the Popular Mobilization Units PMU southwest of Baghdad. The PMU are aligned with Iran, a major force in the fight against terrorism and a part of the Iraqi armed forces. This attack was attributed to Israel and the United States, but Washington vehemently denied playing any part in it. The US encountered all of these misfortunes while Iran was carrying out a brand new military drill by the name of Iqtidar 99, which is taking place on the southeastern Makran coast, just after 2 American B-52 strategic bombers flew close to the region. In an interesting spin, Tehran claimed this close flyby as a sign that Washington is fearful of Iran's defensive might. The bombers, which are capable of dropping nuclear gravity bombs, were deemed void of operational value by Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohammad Bagheri. Even on Donald Trump's last day in office on January 19th, the Middle East is still on the brink of a devastating escalation, with every side attempting to forward its agenda and damage that of its adversaries.
So you see, wars, rumors of wars, all happening on this week of inauguration. But hey, wait, now they want to make sure that you're vaccinated, so that way you can receive the mark in your hand or in your forehead that you will not be able to buy or sell. Say he that has the mark.
For decades, Black Americans have been mistreated and underrepresented by the medical
how they're trying to sell you this?
As a result, there is a deep lack of trust.
But we must and we will do better.
Fuck you!
One of the wrongs we can right
is to stop the damage being done by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The disproportionate number of Black lives that this virus has taken.
As a Black
they listen to all these terrorists.
A student, a mother,
and a person with a disability. My message to you is, do not let our communities miss out.
Of the full
and our message to you is, don't take it.
Have met rigorous safety.
You are fucking dead if you fucking take it.
Are effective.
If you don't die from the reactions, Most High's gonna fucking kill your ass.
Vaccines are for every one of us. Our communities deserve this breakthrough. You can help save lives.
And fuck you. And you just gotta have that attitude, because they're gonna really push it out there. Senator Rand Paul, new Secretary of State over regime change in Syria. They're already talking about regime change and the overthrow of the Syrian government. See how everything's back on the table again that was there during the Obama administration. They're ready to overthrow the legitimate government of Syria. U.S. Senator Rand Paul recently challenged the new Secretary of State nominee. Okay, I guess it's he's not the new secretary, but hey, we need to get rid of Syria. Anthony Blinken on the history of pushing regime change in the Middle East and North Africa. Senator Paul began his argument by questioning Blinken's role in the NATO intervention of Libya in 2001 and his support for U.S. military intervention in Iraq. Actually, it sounds like he's criticizing more so. But nonetheless, though, the fact that this is already being out there, and he's only been the president for a couple hours now, what the Kentucky congressman said was a major disaster that paved the way for a stronger Iran. The congressman argued that Blinken to push regime change in Syria, which he had, was a significant blunder, especially with the amount of money spent training the terrorists. Senator Paul said the administration of former President Barack Obama spent $250 million on training 60 terrorists, which he said was a waste of money. So, they train terrorists to go into Syria, but the fact that it's already being talked about. Yes, you can best believe that, but wait, war is already here. Russian Air Force unleashes heavy strikes over ISIS hideouts in central Syria. So they're going after the terrorists that the United States creates. The Russian aerospace forces continued their air campaign against the central region of Syria this week, hitting several sites belonging to the terrorists, ISIS, ISIL, and IS and Daesh. According to field report from the Haas Governorate, the Russian forces unleashed the heavy strikes over southern Al-Raqqa, eastern Hama, and northeastern Homs. In addition to the strikes of the southern Al-Raqqa, the Russian Air Force targeted the Al-San direct of eastern Hama and Bayat al-Sakani region of northeastern Homs. So, it's happening, man. ISIS is getting pounded, but wait, there's more. Jordanian army thwarts infiltration attempt into Syria. So, they're still trying to get into Syria. The Jordanian army announced on Friday that the Eastern Military region thwarted today, Friday at dawn, as one of its own facades, an attempt by a group of people to infiltrate from Jordan lands into Syrian lands. An official military source in the General Command of the Jordan Armed Forces said the rules of engagement were applied, which led to a number of them being injured, arrested, and transferred to the competent security authorities. A source emphasized that the Jordanian Armed Forces will deal firmly and decisively with any infiltration and smuggling attempt to protect the borders and prevent those who beg to tamper with the Jordanian national security. So it's already happening. They're already going after Syria, as you can tell. Iranian-backed Fatima Brigade denies the Israeli strikes targeted them in Syria. You see, and this is coming from the groups that Israeli state said that they were targeting. No, they were not the targets. The commander of the Fatima Brigade said that the Israeli Air Force did not strike their sites in the eastern city of Deir ez-Zor, pointing out that the latter strikes hit the Syrian Arab Army instead. The leader of Fatima Brigade denied what was published by the Western media regarding the killing of a number of Afghan fighters in Syria, telling the Tashin agency of Iran that these claims are all false. He said despite the Western media campaign, Fatima's sites were not targeted and no Afghani fighter was killed during the Zionist raid. So you see, multitudes in the Valley of Yehoshaphat. Well, the rest of the world doesn't want a war, but you see, they'll make their habitations desolate with them, which is the whole point and everything. But getting back to the financial collapse, as we can see, though, that this Joe Blow, Jim Crow Biden hasn't even been in office for a week. And already you're seeing what's going on.
Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. A week in, and it's already a disaster. Hopefully people prepared, because it's going to get a lot worse. The newly inaugurated Biden administration issued a flurry of executive orders, many of them relating to the economy. Everybody in America is going to be impoverished to a degree by these failed policies. Americans voted for Joe Biden, but they have gotten Bernie Sanders. Almost $2 trillion in new debt. People need to understand this funding is not free. It has to be paid for. And the federal government does not have it. Nor does it produce any funding. It gets the funding by levying races against the income of people and businesses. It's a stranglehold. If that stranglehold is applied long enough and hard enough, it can kill the victim. And where is all that money coming from? The middle class and higher taxes. While millions and millions of Americans can't pay their mortgage. What do you think is going to happen when people can't work and feed their families? Of course, job losses are going to be bad when all the states are told to close for weeks and months to flatten the curve, and when half the states shut down and remain shut. The Great Reset is on its way, folks. Just because we were able to kick the can down the road for as many years as we have doesn't mean we can continue to do it with the same degree of success. The can is now so large that it can't be kicked. If you try to kick it, you're just going to break your foot.
Yeah.
The lockdowns are working as intended, to destroy small businesses and enrich multinational corporations. To make people dependent on the state for their income in order to quell the revolutionary spirit.
Just like we said.
To alienate the individual from his community and family. This is the propaganda put out by the World Economic Forum on the Great Reset. You're not going to own anything, and you're going to like it. You're going to rent everything and have it delivered to your home by drone. So you're not going to own anything, but the people you rent from will. And you're not renting it from a local mom and pop shop. You're renting it from someone like Jeff Bezos, who is wealthy enough to have a fleet of drones that can deliver packages anywhere. Stimulus checks are also not the right solution. People haven't gotten wealthier by governments passing more money. While debt has risen in the US, the government is going to have to rely on inflation to reduce the value of the debt. Real debt has to be liquidated in order to ever get back on our feet again, and it gets liquidated by inflation, and that's what they're working on. Universal basic income would just exacerbate poverty. A guaranteed wage can't work because you equate productivity with knowing whether people can get more money. Handing out money now does help people in the USA in the short term. It also harms the poorest people in the world who have to produce the things we buy with those loans. But in the long term, we have to pay it back plus interest we lose, and the poor who we enslaved during a pandemic will have more on those repayments, stronger currency. If we were responsible in the first place, we wouldn't need to milk the poor with our greed today, and we'd never lose our power either. We'll get what's coming soon enough. If $2,000 checks are good, then $20,000 is better, and $200,000 checks would be the best. If we give $1 million to every man, woman, and child, we'll all be millionaires and in the same boat, exactly where we started. With socialism, one can either pull the cart or get in the cart. The crisis hits when the last guy pulling realizes everyone else is in the cart, and he too stops pulling. That's what happened under Chairman Mao when farmers melted down their tools, pulled the cart, and then the crisis hit. No tools to farm, everyone else is in the cart and stopped pulling. Tens of millions died of starvation. The reason QE1, QE2, and QE3 didn't crash the dollar was because so many people believed the Fed would be able to unwind the policy. But nobody is going to buy into it again. Nobody is going to bite on this a second time. Everybody knows at this point that QE is infinite. Everybody knows that the Fed is never going to shrink its balance sheet. The balance sheet is going to grow in perpetuity. It's just that now people are under the delusion that it's okay. They don't realize that the only reason it worked the first time was because the world was convinced that it was temporary and a one-off emergency measure. And of course, all of the new debt Joe Biden wants to take on will be monetized by the Fed. The central bank will print even more money to buy you these bonds because the demand for all these treasuries simply doesn't exist in the open market. If the Fed did the right thing and let the economy reflect a market rate of interest, rates would rise and it would stop the government from taking on bigger debt. In fact, it would force the government to shrink the debt it already has. The government would have to be responsible if the Fed did the right thing and allowed interest rates to rise. But because the Fed doesn't have the guts to do the right thing, because it's doing the reckless and irresponsible thing by keeping rates artificially low, they're now creating a situation where now the government is going to take advantage of what the Fed is doing by using that as an opportunity to go even deeper into debt. There are several problems with this borrow and spend while interest rates are low strategy. In the first place, the US government isn't locking in these low interest rates long term. Most of the debt is being financed via short-term paper. What happens when these interest rates rise, and the short-term debt matures, and we have to roll it over into a much higher interest rate environment? You see, Joe Biden completely ignores that massive risk because this debt is not going to be financed with 30-year bonds. If the government tried to finance it with 30-year bonds, 30-year rates would rise sharply. The only way to take advantage of these low rates is to borrow in the short-term market, which means we are exposing the taxpayer to the enormous risk that rates go up. So, we're not really taking advantage of these low rates. We're simply exploiting them in the short run, but we're setting ourselves up for a huge cost when these artificially low rates are a thing of the past.
And that's just it, you see? America is going to be destroyed. Financially, it's broken, and it's just waiting for destruction, you know? That's why a lot of these Edomites are killing themselves right and left. And then they're getting killed by the vaccine under the guise of, oh, well, we're going to reopen everything once that comes out. Well, it's been out for well over a month. Ain't shit fucking reopened because they keep lying to you. Got news for you. They ain't opening up in Europe. They're not opening up in the UK. They're not going to reopen in China. Once the second lockdown is done worldwide, you're not getting out of it. And then it's going to be World War III because the mark of the beast will come. The RFID implant will be made mandatory, just like the vaccine is made mandatory in order to participate in things. Eventually, to participate in anything, you'll have to have the vaccine and you'll have to have digital certification, which comes via the chip. So I hope all this has been edified like everything else. We're hastening to the coming of the day of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai as we wait for Babylon to burn. Shalom. But wait, there's more. You know, because the U.S. This week has been having a whole bunch of bad luck in the Middle East. The Valley of Yehoshaphat. Very bad things are going to continue to happen as the king of Babylon brings America down. Because that's what it's really about, getting rid of the whore.
eve of incoming US President Joe Biden's inauguration, as if in celebration of his success, quite a few things coincided in the Middle East, most of them to America's detriment. These include the anniversary of the killing of Iranian Brigadier General Qasem Soleimani, the new killing of top nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, and a ramping up of Israeli airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria. As a result, the American forces in the Middle East appear to be fresh out of luck in the first weeks of 2021. A series of misadventures has befallen US soldiers in Syria and Iraq. On January the 19th, a US AH-64 Apache attack helicopter allegedly crashed in the northeastern Syrian province of Hazaka. It reportedly crashed inside the US base at the Al Jabsa oil field near the city of Al-Shadadi. There is no information on any casualties as yet, but there were likewise initially none when Iranian ballistic missiles hit the US Al-Assad base in Iraq back in January 2020. On January the 9th, disaster had struck in the central and southern regions of Iraq as 3 US convoys were reportedly hit by IEDs. These attacks were an unsurprising adverse effect of the standoff between the US-led coalition and the Iranian-aligned Axis of Resistance in the Middle East. Days later, a series of explosions hit positions of the Popular Mobilization Unit's PMU southwest of Baghdad. The PMU are aligned with Iran, a major force in the fight against terrorism and a part of the Iraqi armed forces. This attack was attributed to Israel and the United States, but Washington vehemently denied playing any part in it. The US encountered all of these misfortunes while Iran was carrying out a brand new military drill by the name of Iqtidar 99, which is taking place on the southeastern Makran coast, just after 2 American B-52 strategic bombers flew close to the region. In an interesting spin, Tehran claimed this close flyby as a sign that Washington is fearful of Iran's defensive might. The bombers, which are capable of dropping nuclear gravity bombs, were deemed void of operational value by Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohammad Bagheri. Even on Donald Trump's last day in office, on January 19th, the Middle East is still on the brink of a devastating escalation, with every side attempting to forward its agenda and damage that of its adversaries.
So you see, wars, rumors of wars, all happening on this week of inauguration. But hey, wait, now they want to make sure that you're vaccinated, so that way you can receive the mark in your hand or in your forehead that you will not be able to buy or sell. Say he that has the mark.
Black Americans have been mistreated and underrepresented by the medical
how they're trying to sell you this?
As a result, there is a deep lack of trust.
But we must and we will do better.
Fuck you!
One of the wrongs we can right
is to stop the damage being done by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The disproportionate number of black lives that this virus has taken.
As a black
they listen to all these terrorists.
A student, a mother,
and a person with a disability.
My message to you is, do not let our communities miss out.
Of the full
and our message to you is, don't take it.
Have met rigorous safety.
You are fucking dead if you fucking take
they
it.
Are effective.
If you don't die from the reactions, Most High's gonna fucking kill your ass.
Vaccines are for every one of us. Our communities deserve this breakthrough.
You can help save lives.
And fuck you. And you just gotta have that attitude, because they're gonna really push it out there. Senator Rand Paul, new Secretary of State over regime change in Syria. They're already talking about regime change and the overthrow of the Syrian government. See how everything's back on the table again that was there during the Obama administration. They're ready to overthrow the legitimate government of Syria. U.S. Senator Rand Paul recently challenged the new Secretary of State nominee. Okay, I guess it's he's not the new secretary, but hey, we need to get rid of Syria. Anthony Blinken on the history of pushing regime change in the Middle East and North Africa. Senator Paul began his argument by questioning Blinken's role in the NATO intervention of Libya in 2001 and his support for U.S. military intervention in Iraq. Actually, it sounds like he's criticizing more so. But nonetheless, though, the fact that this is already being out there, and he's only been the president for a couple hours now, what the Kentucky congressman said was a major disaster that paved the way for a stronger Iran. The congressman argued that Blinken to push regime change in Syria, which he had, was a significant blunder, especially with the amount of money spent training the terrorists. Senator Paul said the administration of former President Barack Obama spent $250 million on training 60 terrorists, which he said was a waste of money. So, you know, they train terrorists to go into Syria, but the fact that it's already being talked about. Yes, you can best believe that, but wait, war is already here. Russian Air Force unleashes heavy strikes over ISIS hideouts in central Syria. So they're going after the terrorists that the United States creates. The Russian aerospace forces continued their air campaign against the central region of Syria this week, hitting several sites belonging to the terrorists, ISIS, ISIL, and IS and Daesh. According to field report from the Hamas governorate, the Russian forces unleashed the heavy strikes over southern Al-Raqqa, eastern Hama, and northeastern Homs. In addition to the strikes of the southern Al-Raqqa, the Russian Air Force targeted the Al-San direct of eastern Hama and Bayat al-Sakani region of northeastern Homs. So, it's happening, man. ISIS is getting pounded, but wait, there's more. Jordanian army thwarts infiltration attempt into Syria. So, you know, they're still trying to get into Syria. The Jordanian army announced on Friday that the eastern military region thwarted today, Friday at dawn, as one of its own facades, an attempt by a group of people to infiltrate from Jordan lands into Syrian lands. An official military source in the General Command of the Jordan Armed Forces said the rules of engagement were applied, which led to a number of them being injured, arrested, and transferred to the competent security authorities. A source emphasized that the Jordanian Armed Forces will deal firmly and decisively with any infiltration and smuggling attempt to protect the borders and prevent those who beg to tamper with the Jordanian national security. So it's already happening. They're already going after Syria, as you can tell. Iranian-backed Fatima Brigade denies the Israeli strikes targeted them in Syria. You see, and this is coming from the groups that Israeli state said that they were targeting. No, they were not the targets. The commander of the Fatima Brigade said that the Israeli Air Force did not strike their sites in the eastern city of Deir ez-Zor, pointing out that the latter strikes hit the Syrian Arab Army instead. The leader of Fatima Brigade denied what was published by the Western media regarding the killing of a number of Afghan fighters in Syria, telling the Tashin agency of Iran that these claims are all false. He said despite the Western media campaign, Fatima's sites were not targeted and no Afghani fighter was killed during the Zionist raid. So you see, multitudes in the valley of Yehoshaphat. The second answer is chapter 15, because that is speaking more than anything else. All these books are speaking, but this one in particularly, you know, just it's time to read it, you know, because we're seeing it. 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 1, and it reads, Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Most High. So, only a prophet's going to know these words, and it has to be given. You see, we didn't choose this, it was given. In other words, it chose us, meaning that we were marked from the very beginning, you know, and we got sealed once we woke up to this truth. And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true, you see. Because in our previous lives, even though we didn't know who we were before, we came back as to the remembrance as to who we were. And only the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, can do this. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. You know, again, you know what's about to take place here is they're, you know, force mandating the vaccine. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. You know, people that just, you know, well, I have to take it because this, because that. You know, they're going to die in their unfaithfulness ultimately. because this vaccine is going to cause people to bleed out through their eyes. It's just going to destroy everything. Behold, saith the Most High, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. So, America has done this, Everybody knows about Great Satan and the things that Great Satan does, and still continues to do on a daily basis. Therefore saith the Most High, I will hold my tongue no more, touching their wickedness which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. So, all these wicked festivities and all that, it's the Most High itself that's shutting that shit down. And he's using the sword to come after those that want to celebrate that. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. How do we do that? We constantly put up videos and we condemn this place. And we still, we go out on the streets and we teach. And therefore saith the Most High, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. So in other words, there's 2/3 of our people that are not innocent. But the innocent blood, which are the elect, are going to be spared from this. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. And we know we're in modern day Egypt because, again, Egypt means bondage. And we know this is the high place of bondage. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. And we can see that, we're at the beginning stages of this, everything's shut down, and festivities, all those things are closed, even bars, there's a curfew now in California of 10 o'clock. Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that Yahweh shall, let me get that over, bring upon it. They shall bring upon it. They that till the ground shall mourn, for their seeds shall fail through the blasting of hell and with a fearful constellation. You're seeing storms all the time destroying crops. And you can just, we're at the beginning stages of this. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And you're seeing that everywhere. Uproars of the people. Now, again, here in America, people just, they get their Vaseline willingly, and they let their senators and governors bend them over and fuck them up the ass, Well, again, this is a place of Sodom and Egypt spiritually, so, you can see why they like to take it in the ass from their so-called leaders, Unlike what the uprisings that you see in Germany and France and all those places, man, even in the UK, over here, they just know how to bend over better. I guess they've been queers a lot longer. For they shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. That's right, man. Pretty much, man, they ain't going to give a shit about what the law is. And, again, they're only people, can break in and steal a bunch of shit, and they're out the next day. For the sword and the destruction draweth... Oh, okay, that's not it. And a man shall desire to go in a city and shall not be able. For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. For because of the pride of the cities shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and all the men shall be afraid. That's right, man. Because again, it's happening, man. People are starving to death, and they'll do anything once they know that the food supply is gone. Take a good look at the panic buying that's started up again, and the so-called holiday shoppers, man. You think that they're really after the PlayStation 5s or the Xbox X's? I mean, I know that there's people out there, but they're mostly after food right now. For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and all the men shall be afraid. and shall have no pity upon one another, but shall destroy the houses with the sword and spoil their goods, because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. And that's going to happen. Behold, saith the Most High, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising of the sun, from the south, from the east, and Libyas, to turn themselves one against another and repay the things that they have done to them. So again, that's recompense. How is Babylon going to recompense the Most High? It's going to have to pay for everything it's done. The Most High is making its pay. It's shutting down all the festivities, and he's just getting warmed up. There should be more lightnings, fires everywhere, just more boarded up places. It's happening. So anyhow, this is a video from Brother Malcolm on that goes into it. See, people know that COVID-1984, that this is, in fact, a phrase for the New World Order. Because everybody knows what 1984 is by George Orwell. At least most people should. Especially if you're in this truth, you should know what 1984 is. We're living in that dystopian utopia. The dystopia. So, anyhow, I hope all these have been edified. Like everything else, though. Hopefully the computer will be up and running very soon as soon as I'm done with this. For that, I want to say Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rakah Kadash, Wa Abba Babal, and Barak Atham the hopeful elect. Shalom.